Hey guys, it's Riot Kitty. Welcome to my 600 sub special, my top 10 villains. You all probably won't ever know the full extent of just how grateful I am for all the love and support. So I sincerely thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Now then, let's get a crackin', and let me show you my best of villainy candidates. Precure Precure All Mode is an entry in the Precure franchise. It's about cute girls becoming cute magical girls and making sweets, all the while fighting evil. Now you might be wondering, what kind of villain would I put in this top 10 list that's from a cute and adorable show such as this, that might very well give you diabetes? Well everybody, meet Yugioh. He takes the number 10 spot. Yugioh is a dandy man, wielding many cards of dark magic, in service of his master Noir. Although, as it's later revealed in the series, Yugioh is much more than your typical henchman, as he is essentially a living corpse, a consciousness that gains sentience through the body of Noir. From the very beginning, Yugioh's life was not his own, and his purpose was to be a puppet, and by his own admission, essentially caused Yugioh to be born as a psychopath, lacking any empathy or compassion, just using logic and facts to get his way. This actually leads to some of the creepiest episodes in the entire series, as he is an emotional manipulator. He has no qualms about getting them to suffer. As logically speaking, if the Cures were converted into servants of darkness like him, then the fighting between the Cures and Noir would end. However, this eventually bites Noir in the butt, as after Yugioh determines that he cannot convert the Cures to servants of darkness, he then decides that the only way to end all this conflict, all this fighting, is to erase both. So he backstabs Noir, absorbs him and his ex-girlfriend to become the ultimate being, to create his ideal world full of apathetic little pigs, so that nobody will fight anymore. Which blew my mind for a show that I thought was going to be a very standard magical girl fare. However, my main reasoning for putting Yugioh on this list is not that, but at the absolute peak of his villainy, in my opinion. As throughout the series of episodes where Yugioh is trying to logically determine what would be the best method of creating new servants of darkness, he decides that one day he's going to call up a very, very sick little girl at a hospital. And he tells this sick little girl that, well, essentially, the whole world would be better off without her. Her sister would be happy once she's gone, because then she wouldn't be a burden anymore to her future. And after the girl asks for her wish to be granted so that her sister would be happier, he takes her away to his master's world, and she gets turned into a snowman that insistently asks to play with her sister. But on the inside, she insistently asks if her sister is now happy that she's gone. This was never personal to Yugioh. It's just business. So hats off to you, you crazy psychotic bastard. He's a fairly new baddie in the world of scum and villainy, so that's why he's at the very bottom. Now then, let's move on to even more wretched scum. It's bipedal cats versus a gargoyle bat thing. You know what, I don't actually know what he is. But Musume, the freaking ever-living, takes the number 9 spot. An immortal demon priest who wants to destroy the Thundercats and conquer Third Earth. Musume isn't really all that deep of a character, but sometimes simple is best. Because sometimes you can just have villains who are pure evil. And you might have noticed I didn't specify a series because I actually like both versions, the 80s version and the 2011 version. And we'll just ignore whatever this abomination was. Although I must admit, I slightly prefer the 2011 version, as it gave Musume an elevated status from just a random guy the Thundercats happened upon by random chance, to a guy who was elevated to almost mythical status in the world of Third Earth, and also a space warlord, which is pretty cool. The only other thing I'll mention is that when Musume is in a good mood, he likes to screw with people, which is why I put his peak of villainy at this. Killing Claudius in the 2011 reboot, disguised as Panthro. Now, Musume didn't need to do that. He already had the element of surprise, but he was in too good of a mood to pass up this chance. He probably was thinking, I'm gonna make it look like one of their beloved generals is killing their beloved king before I kill them all. And thus, Musume was probably laughing for days afterwards because of this. Because he was in just that good of a mood. And that evil. Now, on to the next baddie. Now it's time for another magical girl series. Winx Club, an Italian animated show about fairies attending Alfea Academy and fighting against various magical forces, which is also still currently ongoing. And although I don't watch this show anymore because, well, it just ran for way too long past its prime, I still can appreciate one of its baddies. This is gonna be slightly embarrassing. Meet my first cartoon crush, everybody. The Shadow Phoenix. And before you ask how a 6-7-year-old little kitty could be smitten with this bony guy, well, this is his human form. He's handsome. So yeah, I was completely in Bloom's shoes for the entire duration of Season 2. I was completely smitten with him as well. Until, of course, it was revealed he was darkness incarnate, basically. He even tricks Bloom into turning into an evil version of herself so that he can use the power of the dragonflight within her. And while Lord Drakkar is not exactly the most deepest character or even the best written, in the Winx Club universe, he's basically the one character who's caused basically almost all pain and suffering, at least in the first 4 seasons. He's destroyed countless worlds, including Bloom's homeworld of Domino. He's created multiple shadow clones of his victims, which is probably worse than actually killing them because the people they love are led to believe that they're alive. And he's had multiple apprentices who go on to do more of his dirty work and harness the power of darkness. So even in death or just trapped in another dimension, the Shadow Phoenix's presence is still felt throughout the world of Winx. I like those kinds of villains. It shows that they have major presence. And well, he's a particularly special kind of villain for me, because he was the villain that helped me first learn that, oh yeah, bad people can be deceiving. They can trick you. And thus, that is why Lord Drakkar is on this list. Now then, on to the next case of baddie. Long, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was a guy with blue skin and red eyes. And he doesn't have fingernails. He is my favorite Star Wars villain. Cad Bane, everybody. A bounty hunter. From Star Wars The Clone Wars. From a franchise I'm sure needs no introduction. Star Wars is the reason why that this list will only comprise of one villain per franchise. Otherwise, half of this list would be Star Wars villains, because honestly speaking, I think they have some of the greatest antagonists of all time. And while Cad Bane certainly isn't the strongest, nor the most influential, being just a simple bounty hunter, he does have some of the biggest balls and charisma out there. Since he is first introduced reluctantly accepting a job from Darth Sidious, breaking into the Jedi Temple and stealing some holocrons so that Sidious can find some new dark apprentices. Stealing kids all across the galaxy and making the Jedi Council very mad. He can go toe-to-toe with various Jedi and some Sith as well, using the various tools in his arsenal and the assets at his disposal. And Cad Bane is voiced by Corey Burton, who always makes Cad Bane sound like he's after something or someone. So, as a cunning and devious bounty hunter, and as someone with big enough balls to talk back to Darth Sidious, Cad Bane takes the number 7 spot. Now, let us continue through this maze of villainy. Ace Attorney is a video game series where you play as, well, an attorney, defending your clients from getting the hammer smacked upon them, and with a certain amount of zaniness to it. After all, in the first game, you interrogate a parrot. To do so, you must gather up clues, find the evidence, and expose contradictions and testimonies. And with the great Ace Attorney games finally being ported overseas, I decided it would only be fitting to have a villain that was created at almost the very beginning of this series. So, excuse me for my language, but this bitch. Dahlia Hawthorne takes the number 6 spot. Don't let that sweet smile fool you, because underneath all those butterflies and sparkles is a very, very devious and manipulative woman. She's used her charms to deceive and manipulate various men so that she can get away with a lot of crimes. And as a result, they both knowingly and unknowingly help her commit crimes and get away with them. And obviously their lives were destroyed because of that, and most of them ended up dead. While I can't say Dahlia feels proud of what she's done to try and get the good lot in life, she certainly feels no remorse for it. Whenever she feels mad or upset, it's not because their lives are getting destroyed, it's because she might be vindicated, which is why I put her peak of villainy at this. One of her subordinates declared his love for her, and ingested poison because he couldn't trust himself nor her anymore because, well, this whole thing that landed him in jail in the first place was a big fat lie. And while everyone in the courtroom is running around panicking or just in stunned silence, Dahlia just gets up, And she smiles. It was a smile of relief because, well, she was probably thinking, oh, that's wonderful. One of my loose ends took care of himself for me. The lengths Dahlia will go to cover up her crimes is insane. And no one is spared. Not even family. Ironically enough, all these cover-ups eventually leads Dahlia to screwing herself. But even state-ordered execution does not rid the world of Dahlia's presence. She really is such a B-word, which is why she's locked up in the number 6 spot. Now let's move the proceedings to another villainous perpetrator. Kill La Kill is one of my favorite anime of all time. Seriously, check it out, it's awesome. It's about a girl who goes to an elite academy armed only with her scissor blade and a living uniform to find her father's killer. And since it's one of my favorite anime of all time, it's only fitting that I put one of its villains on this list. After careful deliberation, I decide Nui Harumi takes this spot. Yugioh is an awesome final antagonist for sure, but Nui, well, she just gets under everyone's skin a bit more. And she's a lot more creepy because most of the time she's very, very happy no matter what she's doing. And that includes stabbing an old man to death and leaving him to die. Nui as a henchman will literally do anything for her lady Yugioh. And I mean literally anything, to the point where her own life does not even matter to her. And that's honestly the scariest thing about Nui. Just a completely psychotic individual who's also really entertaining to watch, honestly. So for being the happiest, the most gleeful, and the most devoted psychotic henchman in the anime world, Nui Harumi takes the number 5 spot. Now let us continue to draw cards from the deck of villainy. Danganronpa is one of my all-time favorite video game series. I've already talked about it a couple times on this channel, so I'll keep it brief. In the Danganronpa series, you play as a high school student trapped with a bunch of strangers in a fight for survival. In a killing game where you must either kill, be killed, or condemn other classmates to death for your own survival. And at the forefront of it all is someone who tops Nui in insanity. The ultimate fashionista, Junko Enoshima. See, Junko is insanely devoted to making people feel despair, including herself. All despair, all the time. She decided to destroy the world one day, just because she's insanely bored of peace and happiness. A ridiculous villain for an equally ridiculous, but very entertaining series. Much like Nui before her, Junko doesn't really care all that much about her own life, just about her devotion to despair. And as for her limits, well, Junko has none. And she's probably at her happiest when she's watching people take part in this killing game. Killing each other, betraying each other, lying, etc., etc. You will also probably never get a straight answer out of her just because she's so zany and wild. It's like she's flicking switches on and off in her brain repeatedly to make her act like different people. So hats off to the equally entertaining, lovable, and despair-obsessed fashionista who decided to destroy the world one day because she was bored. This is why Junko Enoshima takes the number 4 spot. Now let's continue the hunt for more blackened villains. Go go Power Rangers, na 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 na. When I was in my preteens, I watched quite a bit of Power Rangers. Super nostalgic series, honestly. So, late 2000s, early 2010s. So, Power Rangers Samurai, Power Rangers Megaforce, and Super Megaforce, Dino Thunder, and Ninja Storm. And the one I'm going to be talking about today, Power Rangers Jungle Fury, which is about students from a destroyed academy coming together to prevent evil spirits from crossing over and taking over the world. Their would-be leader, and the final antagonist that the Rangers must face to quash the impending threat, Daishi, takes the number 3 spot. Now, much like all of the other antagonists in Jungle Fury, he's an evil spirit who wants to again wage war in the living world, be a conqueror, take over the world. Stuff like that. There was just one teeny tiny problem for him. He lacked any physical body of his own, so he had to rely on possessing a human, Jared, an old friend and fellow classmate of the Rangers in the Paishwa Academy, where they were learning to harness their spirits. Now, you could technically say I am putting 2 villains on one spot, but, well, considering through several points of the series that Daishi and Jared regard each other as one and the same, it stands to reason that I can make an exception. Of course, with Jared being their friend, the Rangers had to grapple each day with the possibility that they might have to destroy him to banish Daishi back to the spirit realm. And while I mentioned that Daishi is indeed the final antagonist of Jungle Fury, he certainly didn't start out that way, as now with his second chance at life, Daishi is reduced costume nothing more than a lackey, being openly mocked and ridiculed for having to rely on a filthy human. And Jared had to fight in gladiatorial cage matches for everyone's amusement. He had to climb up to the title final boss, almost like Game of Thrones. It was almost like a hero's journey, but for a bad guy. The reason why Daishi is so high up on this list is not necessarily for his villainous deeds, although he did have plenty of that, like torturing some old guys way past their physical limits. It's because of how Daishi and Jared were written as villains. Daishi basically started off at almost the exact same point as the Rangers, at a really, really low point. And well, while they trained, he did as well. And he never remained stagnant throughout the entire season of Jungle Fury. Was Jared going to break free of Daishi's control? Or will they have to destroy him because Daishi devoured his humanity completely? Were they just going to be buddy-buddy for all eternity? Was Daishi going to become a good evil spirit and live as a human? I did not know, so I was super invested in this whole character arc for the entire duration of Jungle Fury. To me at least, that's a sign of effective writing, even with all Power Rangers hamminess. I have yet to be that invested into a bad guy since. Also, in my opinion, he's got one of the coolest power-ups in Power Ranger history. Just look at his Phantom Beast King armor. It looks awesome. Jared also wears a fur cape, which appeals to my taste as a woman. Yeah. Now, let's move on to find some more evil spirits to hunt. Those of you who are regulars to this channel will know that I absolutely adore the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, to the point where Serena from Yugioh Arc-V is my channel mascot, and our monster Lunalite Cat Dancer is my profile picture. I've also made quite a few videos as well, and I make it no secret that Yu-Gi-Oh Zexal is definitely my favorite out of the bunch. So let us make a toast to one of the 7 Barian Emperors. Vector from Yu-Gi-Oh Zexal snags the number 2 spot. I make it no secret that I think Vector is a grade A Yu-Gi-Oh villain. He's one of the best. In his villainous deeds, he connects Season 1 to Season 2 with the whole Barian Emperor's arc. And he is the first one of the Barian Emperors to be introduced to the field. Although not by normal means, as he decided he was going to disguise himself as a human to try and drive a wedge between Yuma and Astral, so that he can beat them just by screwing with them. That's not even a fraction of this guy's rap sheet, and he's probably proud of the fact that I'm listing it here. In his past human life, Vector was led to believe he killed his parents, and then he ascended the throne, basically becoming the Julius Caesar of Yu-Gi-Oh, conquering and destroying countless civilizations. In his current life, however, Vector is way more of a terrible person. As in his current life, he is indirectly and directly responsible for what happened to the Season 1 antagonists, as his influence basically drove them insane, and twisted beyond all recognition of their former human selves. And that's before he's even properly on screen, using a little boy as a conduit between Earth and the Barian world to conquer Earth. So basically a special episode of The Exorcist on Yu-Gi-Oh! But wait, there's more! As he decides that he is going to backstab every one of the other emperors and become the sole ruler of the Barian world using the help of, well, basically God. Although he told basically God to go screw himself after finding out he manipulated Vector's memories, that did not immediately redeem him, as Vector's arrogance in now possessing all 7 Barian Emperor powers became the cause of his undoing. And basically God decides to smite him for his arrogance and his attempt to overthrow him. Which is when the moment happens. The moment when Vector landed himself on this list. See, being smited by basically God, and being dragged down to his death, Yuma grabs Vector by the hand, and he makes a declaration of friendship, wanting to forgive him and stuff. And Vector has a moment of realization, looks up at Yuma, and laughs in his face. That's why Vector is the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh villain in my opinion. He died laughing, regretting absolutely nothing. Even though Vector decided to willingly let go of Yuma's hand because he decided, well, this is my fate, no one else's. Vector was incredibly amused by the prospect that Yuma would just forgive him if he started over as a human. So yeah, Vector laughing at Yuma's stupidity after all that tension, build-up, and drama is what nails him the number 2 spot. Now then, I shall activate the last trap card in the deck of villainy. The honorable mentions. This is the rapid fire section of the video, where I will quickly go over 3 honorable mentions, who didn't quite make it on the list for one reason or another, but whose villainous deeds I felt were worthy of a mention. 1, 2, 3, go! Xana from Code Lyoko is a super intelligent AI, ever-evolving, who was originally created as a defense system. Now, you all know how this song and dance goes, and this eventually culminates in Xana trying to take over the world with a robot army. Unfortunately for Xana, Code Lyoko doesn't really do a good job at explaining things, and that includes him, because he's less like a supercomputer and more like a poltergeist. Like possessing people, making stuff go haywire, including a suit of armor and a teddy bear, and also developing a kissing clone. And ironically enough, that's what gets him a mention here, for his creativity in trying to kill a bunch of school children and kidnap another one. So better luck next time, Xana. Now, on to the next one. Now, you've all seen the memes, but have you seen the man behind the memes? Omni-Man from Invincible gets his second honorable mention. As the main antagonist of one of the only superhero cartoons I've actually, cared about in the last 5 years. Now, Omni-Man is an interesting breed of villain, as he does not particularly want to look like he's the bad guy. And at the end of it all, after all that tension and build-up, it sounds like he's trying to convince himself and not his son, to join the Viltrumite Empire in conquering Earth, by showing just how worthless humans are in the grand scheme of things. And the only reason why Omni-Man is not on this list is because, well, his story is not done yet. I am all there for Invincible Season 2 and Season 3. Just please, Amazon Prime, give it more than 8 episodes per season so that other side elements of the world can be a bit more fleshed out. So yeah, Omni-Man is certainly an interesting antagonist. I have no idea where his story is going, and that excites me. So I will be eagerly anticipating Season 2 and 3. Now for the final honorable mention, Musume from Pokemon. In the Pokemon Sun and Moon games, she initially comes off as a sweet and angelic motherly figure wanting to take care of all sick and injured Pokemon as head of the Aether Foundation. Unfortunately, due to searching for her husband through Ultra Space, her mental state deteriorated to the point where she is a wee bit insane. All she cares about is her precious beast, wanting to stay with it forever in Ultra Space. So she's got Pokemon frozen in a basement and artificially engineered some as well to do so. She was a very satisfying antagonist to take down, both for being insane and for taking her down a peg or two in her high and mighty attitude towards her children. And the only reason why she's not on this list is because that was ruined and completely removed in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, in favor of her just getting her butt kicked by Darkness Incarnate. I'm sorry, Pokemon, I don't want my antagonist defeated for me in a cutscene. And then just pretend that alarming behavior about having Pokemon frozen in her basement and controlling every aspect of her children's lives was just, no big deal. Even in the anime, she was turned into a workaholic mom who was just trying her best, and by consequence, that made her children look like complete a-holes. At least there's still the Pokemon manga, where she is more akin to her Sun and Moon version, which, in my opinion, is the best version. So unfortunately for Musume, due to the wild inconsistencies between her different versions, that is why she only gets an honorable mention here. Although Sun and Moon Musume, in this moment in time, still remains my favorite Pokemon antagonist to beat. Alrighty, we've arrived at the end of the honorable mentions. Now for the top one baddie. The best of the best. The show that the number one baddie is from is probably the first superhero cartoon I ever watched. It got me into superheroes, and I probably wouldn't be the same geek I am today without it. Teen Titans is a 2003 show about the Teen Titans, going on various missions, growing as heroes, all that stuff. The Teen Titans faced quite a few baddies in the show's 5-season run, still unfairly cancelled if you ask me. But the one baddie that towers above all the other Teen Titans villains is the one who takes this number one spot. Slade gets this by miles, because I have yet to view a villain that comes even close to the awesomeness of Slade. While we have yet to see his face, nor any explanation for who he really is, we still get a very, very awesome villain. He was awesome because he was that one villain who just got under everyone's skin, hurt them in places they never thought they could be hurt, and manipulated the Titans to no end. And even death did not stop Slade's presence from being felt. Probably his peak of villainy comes with what he did to Robin and Tara. He tried to mentally break and emotionally manipulate these teenagers to make them join his side, and that torment eventually catches up with Robin. Of course, Slade would not be nearly as effective as a villain if not for the voice acting talents of Ron Perlman, who brought a very spine-chilling presence to Slade. Whenever he raised or lowered his voice, it always sent a shiver down my spine, or I was scared out of my bleeping mind. And that is why, for me, Slade gets the crown of #1 Batty. So, my lovely viewers, what do you think of my villain list? Is it accurate? Does it suck? Is it somewhere in between? I also want to know what your top 10 villains are in the comment section below. It seems as though my 600 sub special has come to a close. I hope you've all enjoyed the show. And I'm very happy that my channel continues to grow, even after my 4-month hiatus. So thank you all so much for watching. Riot Kitty is signing out.